out there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whether you're watching us live or on the replay. I will say my feet are dancing under my chair. I'm so excited to have Nick here with me today. As I was
Stop it.
telling him, no, it's so true. I met you on LinkedIn sometime last year. I started following you and loving your stuff, and you had put up a little training, and I thought, oh, okay, well, I have to get up like really early, but I'm going to do that. And I learned so much. I mean, just the techniques and camera and lights and things like that, but also you taught me to have fun with what I was doing. And I think it's certainly made a big difference on how I approach it. I think it's made a big difference to the people who see my content. So for anyone who does not know you, please tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
So I am Nick. I am a social selling and video coach, and I'm based out of the UK, and I work with a couple of companies, DLA Ignite, who are our main partners, and my colleague Eric, if he's watching, at Crux. So hi guys, if you're watching.
Well, I know that you've been working on video for, much of your career. It's been about the video. And more recently begun offering the social selling and video coaching. So it seems more like a shift than really a change to me. So what sort of prompted this move, I should say, not mood, or maybe that's
a good question. So I've been a video producer for over half my life, for over 20 years, making video content. Previous company that I had was we were essentially a kind of white label supplier for other large agencies. So if they didn't have the capabilities in-house to produce their video content, they would come to us. We'd get a team together and we'd start to produce these large, whatever it was, basically, if it was 30 short form pieces of social media content, or a large advertising project, or whatever it was. Obviously, and then I started on LinkedIn probably it must be about 3 years ago now, I think. Kind of started to discover the kind of lead gen aspect of that. So originally, when we started the video production company, our sales cycles were kind of like this, because we'd get a large project in, we'd do all the work, and then we weren't doing any sales and marketing, so it gave vroom through the floor again. And it was like ding 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 ding. So I was like, well, this doesn't really work from a business perspective. I need a more secure form of lead generation. So discovered LinkedIn, started to go hell for leather on LinkedIn, because I get completely obsessed by things. Like if something's new and shiny, I have to kind of get inside it and kind of disassemble it and reverse engineer it to figure out how it works. And just fell in love with this platform, really. And then COVID hit. That lovely pandemic that happened a few years ago, and obviously we couldn't go out and film. So I was like, well, what do I do now? So I was like, well, I've got an awful lot of industry experience. I've been doing this stuff for a long time. Why don't I set up a video coaching component of what I do? Started that. And it gives me a real buzz, and we've obviously worked together as well, but it gives me a real buzz kind of watching people take their first kind of video steps and sort of passing on all that knowledge that I've accumulated over the years, and helping other people kind of start their video journey. And I've always deeply believed, since coming onto the platform, that employees across brands should develop and grow their personal brands to feed back into that company culture. And I was so deeply passionate about this, I started to formulate an idea for training and coaching around that. Unfortunately, my good friend Eric, who's now my business partner, was already working with a company called DLA, who created the social selling program that we teach and coach. So I decided to partner up with him and introduce the video component into our program, and the rest is history, as they say.
It is so fabulous. And I just want to say hi. We have several people out here in our audience. So I want to say hello to Erica and Ilya, our friends. And
Eric's there as well. I can see Jan as well.
Here. And so, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And please do put your questions in the chat. And I'm sure Nick would be happy to answer them for you. So if you have any questions, please do share them with us, and we can see them here in the studio. So one thing I want to ask you, because the idea of social selling, I think so many people, I'm confused by it. I'm still trying to figure it out and how it can work in my business. And so can you talk a little bit about, like, what are some of the misconceptions and kind of what is it?
Yeah. So I kind of start with the 5 C's really. So that's context, content, consistency, conversation, and conversion. So context, who am I speaking to and what do I want them to take away? Content, whether it be text posts, image posts, articles, videos, how am I delivering that message? Consistency, maintaining authenticity in a single personal brand voice and message across time. Conversation, and this is the important part, that's why we create content in the first place, is to drive conversation. So within your content, and then hopefully progress into your DMs and then into the analog world. And then, oh, is that your mobile?
Yes, one thing I forgot to do. I'm apologies.
And then conversion, which is the actual selling part of social selling. So social selling in a nutshell is using your presence and behavior on social media as a team to build influence, make connections, grow relationships and trust, which leads to conversations, commercial interaction and growth. When you do it right, social media directly improves marketing, it impacts business development, sales, employee advocacy, supply chain, R&D, HR, safety, technical, engineering, quality, every single thing that happens in your organization that involves people, it affects basically. And it's extremely contextual as well. So oftentimes, if you look at the way a lot of people or kind of LinkedIn coaches say how to use LinkedIn, it's like, we're creating marketing collateral, and it's almost like a sausage machine. You're kind of driving people into the sausage machine, and then hopefully some of those people will convert out the other end based purely on volume. Social selling is a lot more strategic than that. We already know who we're going to work with. They just don't know it yet. So that's the difference, is that we're going after specific accounts. So often if I get a prospect that I'm having a conversation with, if they ask me a particular question, for example, I'll write an article or a piece of content that addresses that question. And they're like, oh, Nick, it's like you wrote that article for me, or you wrote that piece of content. It's like, yeah, because I did. It was for you. So that's the difference, is that you can almost have an ongoing sales conversation through your content by making it contextual with that person. And that's the difference between social selling and marketing. It's more targeted, it's more narrow, and you know who you're going after. So we use a lot of data in social selling as well. And Gartner, who we really like, say that people are 57% along in their hiring journey before they come to sales. And that's huge. So what we need to do is influence and affect all the people in that sales cycle. And we know that most large organizations, there's anywhere between 12 to 15 stakeholders on a large deal. So we need to get in front of those stakeholders, influence their buying decisions, and move that deal along. It's, contrary to popular belief, you're not going to get £100,000 deal just land in your DMs in LinkedIn as inbound. Those kind of deals take an awful long time to work out. There's lots of stakeholders involved, and working as a team, that's what you do as an organization. You go after those particular stakeholders and you influence them through your content. And that's the difference between social selling and what we refer to as kind of traditional marketing. We also like, I mentioned Edelman earlier, but they've got a trust report that they did a while ago. So Edelman usually do, I think they did trust reports with kind of like large bodies, so government bodies, churches, that kind of thing. They did one with LinkedIn a few years ago, which is absolutely dynamite. And Edelman says that 64% of buyers say that an organization's thought leadership content is a more trustworthy basis for assessing its capabilities and competency than its marketing materials and product sheets. So that's effectively what we do. We create technical influencers, people that know their stuff in their space. They're creating content.
Oh, okay.
On a daily basis, and that's that's how they affect the people that they need to sell to. So, and everyone that sees this sees at least a 30% increase in revenue and a 40% decrease in sales cycles. We've got reams and reams of data and case studies and happy clients to back this up. But I think probably the best example I can use is from one of Eric's clients who's down in the chat there. So this is Patrick Sriracho from Cyberhawk, one of Eric's clients. And he says that a social organization recognizes that building a more humanized relationship with all of its stakeholders, from customers to investors and employees, develops trust and a sense of belonging required to differentiate from an ever-growing digital marketplace. That is it in a nutshell. That is social selling.
So, there's a couple of things that kind of stood out to me. One is one of my favorite sayings, that it takes 10 to 20 years to be an overnight success. I mean, with the idea that, people think, oh, wow, look at that's happening to this person or that person. But, it took them many, many steps to get there. And I love what you said about, being authentic. I mean, I kind of hate the word authentic, but I love the idea. And, there are people who post on LinkedIn that if I did not know it was them, I would know it was them, because I know, because they're always, the voice is the same. And how, I try to work on that. How can you, how do people work, sort of get that going so that you're kind of always the same?
I think it's a journey, and it's never gonna, when you initially kind of start on the platform, people are terrified to kind of go into that space, which is authenticity and kind of being vulnerable. But the more you can humanize your content, the more, I always use and I can't remember the Latin for it off the top of my head, but it's know thyself. The more you understand who you are as a person, the more comfortable you are with putting that person out as your personal brand on the platform. It's not a space that everyone feels comfortable to go to, and you get to draw that line as well. It's not, it's down to the individual where they're willing to go stuff. I mean, a lot of my content is quite kind of raw and quite just, sometimes I don't even think about what I'm doing. Sometimes when I write my content, that's some of the best content, is when it just kind of comes from the ether. But I think, having building a humanized relationship and building up a level of, it was from the Raeburn Trust report. I can't remember the exact percentage. I think it was 85%. They did a report and basically said that, people that show vulnerability and authenticity have an 85% bias towards building trust with other people.
Wow.
And that's a huge element of the sales cycles. If you can build trust with the people that you're going to sell to, they implicitly trust you. So it's
I love that. I love that. And, I picked up, I heard a couple of people use this phrase, the idea of content being, professional, personal, and then also the private. And, I've seen some posts that have been quite inspiring to me, that would be something more than maybe I was willing to share. I've gone like kind of as far as I felt comfortable, a little bit. It gets to be a little bit deeper at times. But I have found that using, telling some of my own stories or things that I feel strongly about, whether, I think, oh, should I say this or not? And then, okay, post it. But it's really, really can be tough, I think, for people. And some people seem to be quite comfortable, telling you kind of everything. But I try to find a mix that I'm comfortable with. So
I think it's that there's a mixture in terms of, we always use the kind of 4-1-1 principle with new clients, and that's 4 pieces of content around what they want to be famous for, not what they do for a living, but what they want to be digitally famous for. 1 piece of shared content, which is can be a piece of content, an article or blog that they found really insightful and they put their own stamp on it, and then 1 piece of personal content. And that piece of personal content can be as deep as you want it to be, or it can be, very kind of surface layer. It's my kid's birthday today, or I've suffered this particular thing and I really want to go there and talk about it. So it's entirely up to you where you're. But I will say there's a component or an element of, and I think I've said this to you before. This platform changed my life because I was willing to kind of explore things that I'm convinced that the growth that I've been through and the person that I am now today is because of this platform, which is, forget the money, forget the career and the business and everything else. That is phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal, and that's I don't say it lightly, but this platform, LinkedIn, changed my life, and that's yeah.
Well, I have to say that I love the pictures of kids that I see, and I love your kids. They're so adorable. And so many other people do share, their things that their kids are doing. I know Claire has posted pictures of, her daughter riding and things, and I love that. I really love that. So we do have a question from the audience. So I'd like to go there before I move on to my next question. And it's from my friend Lavinia. What is an obvious to you move that many companies miss on LinkedIn?
They focus too much on their brand and not their employees. If they had enough trust in their employees to build out their personal brand, that's where the magic happens. And you won't get that from companies. There's a shift happening in terms of social selling and kind of creating social organizations where the good guys are the ones that are going to win. If you've got a toxic company culture, ain't no one from that company culture going to be allowed to go on social. They're just not. But the ones that have a decent culture and decent human beings working for them, they're going to absolutely nail it. And they're going to be. We're creating and fostering a culture through digital where the good guys, hopefully, are the ones that are going to win in the long term. And that is amazing as far as I'm concerned. It's the coolest thing to happen in business for the past 50 years as far as I'm concerned. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, I thank you for that. So my friend Paula says she's going to go follow you right now. So smart Paula. I know you're smart. I knew you were smart already, but now I know it even more. So while I have you here, I would be remiss. I have to ask you for some video strategies.
Okay.
And I was talking to you about this before we went live. I still see people doing long talking head videos on LinkedIn. And sometimes it's like 7-8 minutes, and I go on like 3 or 4, and I even though people I love and I know they know what they're talking about, I cannot watch it. So so well, you taught me not to do that kind of stuff anymore.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for people who want to create more engaging video content? What are a few steps that they could take if they're not taking a training with you?
So one of the obvious ones is I always say, if you're not either learn to edit or outsource your editing, but learn how to edit. That is a major component of producing video content. If you have a locked off shot on the same angle for 8 minutes of you talking, you could be giving me, next week's winning lottery numbers, the secret to the universe, or something that's going to save my life next week. I won't watch it because it's boring. It could be the most amazing content in the world, but it's a locked off shot on one angle of someone talking for a long time, and that gets boring very, very quickly. We're scrolling through the feed. We're battered with information through the feed on a daily basis. So we have to stand out. We have to grab people's attention. We have to keep their attention. And we do that by using things called pattern interrupts. So a pattern interrupt is like an on-screen element or something that kind of breaks up the flow of the information. So it kind of keeps people on their toes. And I taught you this when we were doing the editing component of stuff. So having cuts in there, kind of breaking up the size of the shots, adding on kind of on-screen graphics and things like that, keeps the viewer more engaged and interested because there's different things to look at. Video for social media is very different from sort of traditional broadcast media. You're trying to grab attention and kind of keep it for a sustained period of time. So it's a lot more difficult to do that now with people's attention spans as well. So, but and this sounds really weird as well, but humor is a huge one on the platform. It's a business platform, and if you can lean and leverage humor a little bit, your video content will just stand out a country mile because you're surrounded by corporate video content. So if you can leverage and lean on that and you're comfortable to do it, it'll work wonders for you. Not many people are, and it depends what you're selling as well. You're not necessarily going to be taking that seriously if you kind of lean on the human component too much, but you can get decent engagement by leaning on the human side of things. My kind of secret sauce was what I call edutainment. So I would educate someone, I give them tips and kind of tricks around something, but I do it in a kind of tongue-in-cheek, humorous way, so they learn something, but it's engaging and fun at the same time. I'm a big believer in it. If you're gonna teach somebody something or coach someone in something, it needs to be engaging and fun so that they retain that information. So I try and make my sessions as fun as I can. But there's tons of different kinds of video content, even something as simple as kind of getting testimonials from your customers. If you've got a customer, they don't necessarily feel comfortable on video, but you'd like them to leave you a video testimonial, just jump on a Zoom call with them and just have a chat about the project, record it, and then boom, you've got yourself a video testimonial. It's not.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. So that is a total gem. Yeah. That is.
It's kind of obvious when you think about it, but and that way you're creating an environment where they feel comfortable. They know the person they're speaking to. They're not thinking about the equipment and the technology. So you get a much more natural and nuanced video testimonial. Sorry.
Oh, that is fabulous. And, especially I find that, with some of the clients that I work with, they don't want necessarily someone to know that they're, I was the one who wrote their LinkedIn profile, or I was the one that, created the resume or, showed them how to do the profile video or something like that. So, so I hear you, but that is something. And, so many things in life they are so obvious, but until somebody tells you, it's not obvious to me.
No,
but
I guess,
you tell me, it's like, well, yeah, of course.
I take a lot of these things for granted, but hi Ilya as well. I can see Ilya down in the
yes,
chat.
hi Ilya, thank you for joining us.
I think I said this before we kind of started the call, but I'm definitely convinced that if you're talking about a subject that you are uniquely passionate about, that makes a huge difference, because like I said, that your body doesn't lie. If you're talking about a subject that you're really passionate about, you generally tend to kind of get animated and excited about it in your body. And if you're excited and you're having fun and you're passionate about it, your audience generally is going to be too. There's nothing worse than listening to someone drone on about a subject that they absolutely hate, because they just kind of clam up. Their body goes into it's like, oh, I don't want to talk about this, and it's cringeworthy. So.
It's so funny though too, and I know a couple of people who do sort of video training. So they'll be on camera talking and doing a presentation and blah blah blah, and they're great. And when they start to do like just a video, where maybe their profile video even or something like that, it looks like they're like it's a hostage video.
Rabbit in headlights, like.
Right, yeah, and there's something about that, that gets them. So I don't know. It's one of the things, though, I will mention, because you didn't mention it. One of the things that you taught me that I found extremely helpful was to just record one line at a time.
Yeah.
And not, trying to memorize. And then if you make a mistake, you only have to do that one line again. You don't have to start from the beginning.
There's a reason and a system. Like if you're doing that kind of talking head stuff, there's a reason why in film we've got the pre-production aspect of it, the production aspect, and the post-production aspect. So the pre-production is the scripting and all the work that goes into it before we actually start filming. There's the production, which is the actual filming, and then there's the post-production, which is all the editing side, all the stuff and all the sound effects and VFX and everything else that goes on after it. And there's a reason why that's worked for over 100 years, because it works. So if you do all the work in the pre-production stage, if you script it out, and people think that, oh, if I script out my content, it's not going to be natural and it's not going to flow as much. And it's like that. It's almost the complete opposite. Because if you start to put down bullet points around the subject, even though you know the subject really, really well, people tend to kind of go off track, and then they start to think about what they're having to say next. And that detracts from the performance. So if you're not having to think about what you're saying because it's already written down, you can put the energy and delivery into the actual performance, which a lot of it is non-verbal through a video. It's your body language, it's how you're expressing yourself, the tone of voice, how animated you are, and that's the stuff that we read more than the actual things that are coming out of your mouth. So scripting, is hugely important.
Well, that's what that old study that people often use in communications, and I think it's 7% the words you say, it's like 38% your body language, and then the rest is or the words, the tone of your voice, and the other is like body language. And I should put those like in a thing in front of me, because I talk about them all the time and I can never remember the numbers.
And it's the person that we're putting across on, and we talk about authenticity and vulnerability, and sometimes we do need to create videos that are less polished, but a lot of what we're doing a lot of the time is we're putting a more animated version of who we are normally. Like I'm quite fun and tongue-in-cheek and a bit zany in real life, but I kind of ramp that up to, like, I crank it up to 11 when I'm kind of doing video content, because it's more fun and engaging to watch, I hope. So
no, it is. And, I try to do that too. And I've had people say, oh, you're so energetic. And it's like, okay, yeah, well, not when the camera is off, but yes.
Exactly.
But it's so true. If you're writing it in your own words, then it shouldn't sound stilted if you're just writing it how you
because
say
it's your tone of voice. It's your language. It's how you it's how you speak. They're the words from your head. So it shouldn't feel any different. So.
And Ilya says that too. The 1 sentence at a time has been time saving for her editing process. And, I that is so true. If you can just record one line, and, maybe you record it a couple of times, and then I can go and sit on my sofa on my phone and just, do my editing there.
There's an actual process to it. Then it's more kind of assembly line. I remember watching, there was a lady I saw a while back, probably over a year ago, and she put up a screenshot of, because she does her stuff in one take, and it was the kind of screenshot of her album on her iPhone, and there was about 68 takes of this video. It's like because she kind of screwed up somewhere in the middle and gone, okay, well, I need to do another take now. But if you're doing it in chunks, doesn't matter. It's like, okay, that takes good. You mess up there, and then boom, the amount of time you save by doing that is huge. So.
It is. It's incredible. And even if you go back and you're looking at the videos, that doesn't sound so good, you just add it at the end and edit it in, and it's but that's another one of those things. It's so obvious when someone like you says, okay, this is how you do it. And I hear what you're saying, and Ilya was commenting too that she used to ramble terribly, and she's controlling that. And it is true, when you have those talking points, I think we all do that. You just start talking, and where you go from there, and before
you're kind of going off track, and then you're like, oh, what was I talking about? And then you have to you're starting to think about what you're saying rather than how you're saying it, and it is the delivery and the performance that's the more important bit. I could be talking absolute gobbledygook, but if I'm animated and engaged, people like I am now, I could be talking I'm talking absolute gobbledygook, but if I'm animated, engaged, and excited, you're much more likely to listen and engage with that than if I was
you just made me think of a video, and I don't know who did it. It was a gentleman, and I believe he was in London, and he had his camera on, and he was saying, like, here's me on a video walking down the street, and I'm looking over here, and I'm looking over there. And
I think I remember that one.
Anything, but people, I'm sure you're watching me, and it's so true. I mean, it's just people like, okay, what's he going to do next? And I'll never forget that, because it was something. I watched it to the end. He didn't say anything, just like he said he was not going to say anything. But so. What do people, get wrong beyond the idea, like with companies, like somebody like me, who's sort of a one person business, when they're creating and sharing content on video? What are, a couple of the mistakes that they make?
I think when a lot of people kind of start out on the platform, they treat social like a broadcast medium, like kind of traditional broadcast, in that, here's my thing, I'm going to put it out there, and that's it. But the whole point of you producing content is to open up dialogue. So you're creating content in order to pull your audience towards you to start a conversation. I'm almost like, content to me is secondary. I'm not interested in the content. I'm interested in the conversation that goes on. The content, the conversation that goes on below that content is more important than that thing above it. That's what we're here for, is the actual conversation. So if you can, the magic is creating a piece of content that pulls people towards you, creates a space where people can actually involve themselves in that conversation. And that's where the magic stuff happens, because then you're in a conversation with a potential client, or someone that can help you, or someone that can refer you. Or so it's creating that space for conversation that's the important part.
Wow. It's true. And, the thing is too, as I'm sitting here listening to you, and, I will be rewatching this myself, so many of the things, and I guess that's one of the huge benefits of working with someone like you, who can coach them and teach them, because, several of the things that you taught me, it's like, yeah, okay, it makes perfect sense, but I would never have thought of it on my own. So I know that you do a few different things online, live audios, LinkedIn audio. Is there any kind of a theme or something that sort of ties them together? We talked about this a little bit before we went live.
So yeah, obviously there's the social selling component of what we do. So I host a show with them. I'm going to give it a little plug here, called Socially Curious, on a Tuesday with Mr. Doyle, who's in the chat. And that's a little half an hour show that we do, kind of talking about various components of social, and why organizations kind of need to get on board with that. And that's a little, I was running a video tips room as well, but I've had to stop that recently, because I'm just, it's like we said before, in terms of kind of time blocking, I'm trying to produce content, do lives, do this kind of stuff, and coach clients as well. There's only so many hours in the day. So it's hard to maintain that. But I definitely think if you've got access to it, the LinkedIn audio beta at the moment is huge, just because it's a new a platform, new service that LinkedIn are pushing out. It means people don't have to be tethered to their desktops or machines. They can be out and about with their phones listening to the audio, just like Clubhouse was back in the day. So for me, it's a much better medium for kind of having a more kind of passive listening audience that don't have to actively be engaged in the content, whereas you get a nice mix of people that are just kind of tuning in and listening in, and people that are actively wanting to participate. So I'm loving the new LinkedIn audio beta at the moment. There's a few things I need to tweak on it, but all in all, the experience is really good. And I said to you as well, I'm going to probably bring back my I used to do a LinkedIn live show on a Friday, which was literally just a bit of fun. It was me having fun with my audience, asking them silly questions, and just listening to my guests, really. And it was kind of my end of the week kind of wind down, and something I kind of looked forward to at the end of the week, because I'm a big believer in that. We spend most of our lives working. If we can't enjoy the work we're doing, what's the point in doing it? So that was my kind of little thing to look forward to at the end of the week, where I could engage my audience and just have a bit of fun and silliness, really. So
well, I often say that the LinkedIn lives that I do, and I talked to you about, maybe I'm thinking of adding another show, but it's my favorite part of my week, really. It's so much fun for me to meet and be able to talk to people, and I learn so much. And I have so FOMO about the audio, and I'm crossing my fingers that that we put it out there, because as you say, you could do that while you're walking. I am loving this conversation, but we can't do this on our phone. At least I'm not aware that we can. So so we have another question from the audience, from Ilya. So we will put that up if you can ask that. How many cameras do you have during your lives? I see you changing amazingly from views. I'm a newbie on LinkedIn live video. Says be appreciated. So yeah, I'd like to learn that too.
Yep. So I use what's called a video switcher. So the one I use is by a company called Black Magic. It's called the A10 Mini Pro. It's about, I think they're around kind of 600, 500. No, they're around 400. I think around 450 pounds. It's a little video switcher, and it means you can run multiple cameras into that one switcher. So you can run 4 cameras into it. I've got 3 that are plumbed into it. And then you've literally got buttons where you can switch or mix between those camera sources. So you get the 4 cameras going into it, and then you get one output and then you literally just push a button to mix between those camera sources. But it's very difficult. I mean, you're obviously running this live at the moment, bringing up the questions. It's very hard bringing up questions, running the switcher, bringing up kind of on-screen elements or graphics, checking the questions, doing all that stuff, and speaking to your guests at the same time. So I often get Haley, my PA, to help me with that, because it just gets a bit like you're concentrating on pushing all the buttons and not actually talking to your guest, which is quite hard.
Yeah, it's true. And I know sometimes, I tend to be looking off because I want to make sure that, the video is running where it's supposed to be. But luckily we do have the, comments that we can see it in here in the studio. So that does make it easier. But, my goodness, I thought I was doing pretty good with my cool little intro. And now I'm feeling like, oh, man, I should be having 3 cameras and doing all this other stuff. So, I don't know.
Well, that's the next level. You could get a little slider. You get a kind of overhead cam if you want to kind of demo some stuff. Or you just.
Oh yeah.
I think that where we are on LinkedIn, like I always say, if you go and look at YouTube as an example, you look at content on YouTube, how highly produced it is, how beautifully shot it is. The live stuff on there uses a lot of multi-camera relays and stuff. We're in our infancy at the moment with LinkedIn, with where content is. Like this is like bargain basement, we're ground floor at the moment. Give it 5 years, 10 years time. The kinds of content we're going to start seeing on this platform over the next 5 to 10 years is going to be phenomenal. So it's worth, I always say, social media platforms kind of level up over time. You will see a rise in production values on this platform over time. It will happen. So.
Wow. Well, I have to ask you this because I was looking at your profile and I see that you studied film, media, video production in college. So I saw that. And I actually minored in media studies myself. So I did a lot of video. I did some film. We were actually splicing the film together, but I also did a lot of video content where we were kind of just below professional. Like we had 3/4 inch instead of the inch, but we had great editing. And it was I've never lost
I can remember tape to tape as well. I remember we used to work with, I think in college it was SVHS tape, so it was like VHS tape basically, and you would have to go through and you'd have to edit in real time kind of and put the cuts in where they need to be, and if you messed up a cut, that was it. The whole thing was shot and you'd have to go back to the beginning and start again. It's like the advent of we are so lucky now that we can I'm talking to you on my smartphone at the moment, so my smartphone's hooked up as my camera at the moment, but we are so lucky that we have access to apps where we can shoot and we can edit while we're just I take that for granted. We're just out and about walking around and we can shoot stuff and edit it on the fly on our phones. That blows my mind. It's just...
absolutely. I remember about, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago or so, my husband was traveling a lot and he was in Europe often and in London often. And we would, sort of, because he'd be gone for a while, we would just be video chatting, trying, and it'd be all grainy and like, and it was just, and now it's like, here we are doing a show
I think we're at the stage now where, you look at kind of high end movie and film cameras. We're starting to get to the stage or even kind of, digital SLRs or mirrorless cameras like stills cameras. We're getting to the stage now where the smartphones are starting to overtake that because they've got the combination of the hardware, the glass, and the software. So they can start to do stuff in software that those cameras can't. Like the new iPhones now, you can shoot a scene and then in post-production, you can pull focus between people after you've shot it. That's
wow. Okay.
That's it's on a smartphone. Like, where are we going to be in 5-10 years time with this technology? It's
I know, it's incredible. So I agree with you, Ilya. Nick has certainly set the bar higher. So, but that's kind of like, I can think about that and love that, but I'm not aiming for that today. I don't know, maybe next year though.
Who knows?
Shall see about that 3 cameras. So, what would you say about kind of what you do in the work that you do? What do you love the most?
That is easy. That's really easy for me to identify. So when we start with new clients, one of the things we get them to do. So we're not LinkedIn coaches or social selling coaches. We use a number of different platforms. So LinkedIn is one, Twitter is another one that we use. But when we start to get people to first initially kind of start writing their about sections, that is the thing for me that just, it gives me goosebumps listening to people write their about sections, because we get them to write it in a more kind of conversational style, which is we challenge them basically to not put in anything about what they do for a living, and who they are as a person. And for some people it's terrifying. Some people, they find it really easy. But when you start to kind of peel back the layers of that onion, like there was a guy that I'm coaching at the moment, he started to talk about so that the company that we're working with, they install kind of lightning rod protection on buildings. And he started talking about his dad, and his dad used to be a steeplejack. His dad used to go up on the roofs. He used to go up on the roofs with his dad when he was a kid, kind of helping him install this stuff. And his dad was one of the founding fathers of the company that he currently works for. And I think he does kind of height safety now is part of his job. So there's that whole kind of like backstory there, that family kind of history as to why he does what he does, which is I would have never have known that until we kind of started peeling the layers back of, and that for me, I was just like, wow, that's like really interesting and fascinating. And you get to find out who people really are through their about sections. And that for me, that's and that's kind of the start of the journey. We go into that first kind of initial group session. I'm like, it's you sit there and you listen to it, and it's like, it makes the hairs stand up on my arms.
Yeah, so. I'm so excited to hear you say that, because I love that as well. I do a lot of LinkedIn profiles in the about section, and I always ask people, why do you do what you do? When are you getting into it? And I remember things. One man that I worked with was an executive at a medical publishing company, and the reason he was in that position because his dad was a dentist, and he wanted to be in some kind of a help, but he didn't want to be, serving people. So that was how he, and most people have, well, everybody has some kind of story like that. That's interesting. And, you learn about them.
And it's always the people you least expect. You kind of challenge them and you go, what's your kind of life story? And it's like, well, I don't know, I haven't got one. And then you start kind of peeling it back. It's like, this person's the most interesting person in the world. Like the stuff they come out with, it's like until you start kind of getting into it and kind of peeling back the layers of that stuff. And that's just, it's beautiful to watch someone step into themselves, if that makes sense.
No, it is. And to, sort of evaluate themselves and go, oh, wow, that's me. It's like,
look at the stuff I've done.
It is. That's one of the things that I love myself. So, so this actually brings me to my next question. So what is something about you that would surprise people that we don't know?
I don't know, because I don't talk about it that much, but it is on my experience section. I used to be back in the day. So when I left university, like most graduates, I was a bum for a few years and didn't have any work. So on my wife's side of the family, they're all psychiatric nurses. They're all absolutely bonkers, which is why I love them. But my mother-in-law said, well, you finished university, you haven't got any work. Do you want to come and work at the place that I'm working at the moment? So for a couple of years, I was a mental health nursing assistant, which was probably, I have to say, one of the most rewarding jobs I've ever done in my entire life. And it taught me so much about people and mental health and just a beautiful, fascinating job, and I could tell you some stories from that as well.
Well, I have to say, as I'm like, hearing this, my first job when I got into the career field, I was a vocational counselor at a training and placement facility for chronically mentally ill. Okay. And those were our clients, and I did career development with them and taught them basic, office skills, and they were the most dedicated people I have ever met, like as a group. They would come from 45 minutes away, take a bus to a train, take the train to our city, take the bus to and because they were so dedicated in wanting to, learn. And it was, I think about that, and it's just such an interesting experience. And this is one of the reasons I love doing these lives too, because I often learn things that I have like a little bit of in common with people that I had no idea. So
it's beautiful to watch. People that are just really kind of unwell through no fault of their own, and just to help them kind of nurse them and see them get better. It's beautiful. So it really it's one of the most rewarding jobs I've ever had as a person.
So, I mean, obviously yours was much deeper than mine, because the people, I was working with were, in group homes and things like that. But it's just, when you see people, facing and overcoming challenges like that, it's really, really inspiring. And so my last question, as I told you, I stole this from you, the idea of asking my guests for a question for my next guest. So my question for you is, for my last guest, how did your earlier career choices lead you to where you are now?
That's a really good question. I mean, if you kind of look at it, kind of looking back on it and sort of mapping it all, it kind of makes sense. Like, and I've put this in my about section, but the trauma I went through, the fact that I kind of used stories as a mechanism, as a safety blanket to kind of explore the things that I went through as a kid, and then obviously fell into the video stuff, the psychiatric nursing, all those things kind of culminated and got me to where I am now. And I've kind of almost kind of come full circle now. So, the realization of kind of what I went through in the therapy that I've been through recently, and now I'm working with them, and I'm actually going there this evening. So I work with a group, a charity called the Band of Brothers. So we help young men that are kind of going through the prison system, to kind of keep them out of the prison system, basically, and just help them and kind of return them to society as productive members of society. Because there's so many young men out there that just kind of hurt and angry and just need an older man to speak to. So it's weird how Steve Jobs has said it before, but like you can never trace the dots kind of going forward. But if you actually look and stop back, and look back, it's easier to kind of see that journey, I suppose. But I think a lot of what we do on a day-to-day basis, there's so much unconscious stuff that goes on under the surface that if we actually stop and sort of question it and ask why we're doing that, like a lot of what I've done in my life and a lot of what most people are doing in their life is on kind of unconscious autopilot. So it's your subconscious kind of telling you that you need to do these particular things. So.
Well, I thank you so much. We've gone a little bit over. Is there anything you'd like to mention that I should have asked you that you would like to share?
No, I think we are golden. I can hear my wife just come in, and she's starting started to prepare dinner over my shoulder, so I'm probably going to get shouted at in a minute.
Okay. I thank you again so much for being here. Thank you to everyone who's been here with us. We really appreciate you being here today. So.